Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand, everybody. Today is, of course, Wednesday, January the 8th, 2025. I hope everybody's having a good week thus far, as we're now at Hump Day here. So, of course, before we do get started on on what before we even talk about what's on tap for tonight, we're gonna give people a chance to come in. So, if you haven't already, if you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, let's see. Let's do this real quick. Let's see. So while we are in the midst of waiting for people to come in and stuff like that, I'll talk a little bit about like what I've been watching. Recently, of course. Last night, watched the first step as part of my Annie Nights blocks. Watched the first episode of Princess Knight. Basically, another Tezuka anime, as I've been, of course, as I've been doing with the historical comic retrospectives. I've been like, and now with my cartoon and anime watching, I've been like kind of coming back from basically the idea of going started all the way back at a particular point and just moving forward in time based on in the case of the animes based more now on original air date as opposed to the dub air date. So of course I'm watching on my Annie Night blocks right now. Um, right now it's like Astro Boy, Gigantor, which of course was originally known as Tetsujin 28 Go, Kimba the White Lion, Speed Racer, and now starting with last night, Princess Knight, and then Marine Boy, the 60, the portion of the anime that came out in '69. Um, you know, um, of course, most of these, in fact, they're in the '60s were from Osamu Tezuka. So, um, and of course, Astro Boy, Gigantor, and Speed Racer and Marine Boy have all, and Kimber the White Lion have all been one of these. Right now you can actually find Speed Racer and Kimber the White Lion on MeTV Tunes late at night, part of a late night anime block before they do the super marionation. So. Let me see. Let me do one more thing here, and then I will. Then we will talk about what's on tap for tonight. We're now already past the 4 minute mark, so I will go ahead and talk about what's on tap for tonight after I've done one more one more little attempt here to see if we can remind some people that I'm on, and see if we can get them to drop by to say hi. All right. So with that being done, why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about what's on tap for tonight? So tonight, we're going to go over a couple of articles, one from Bounding into Comics, one from Bleeding Fool. From Bounding in the Comics, we're going to take a look at the article about the first trailer for an upcoming anime called Topoki. Is it? Takopi's Original Sin. We'll be looking at that. And then we will also, we won't be looking at the trailer itself, but we'll be looking at the article talking about the trailer. And then, of course, there's, I guess, at least one Batman writer who is bemoaning the fact that Bruce Wayne is rich. So we're going to look at that, and that's an Avi article, obviously. So with that, plus, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap-up. We get caught up on what happened on last night's NXT. Talk about look ahead to tonight's Dynamite as well as this weekend's New Japan show a bit, at least in regards to some of the AEW talent that will be involved in the battle in the Valley this Saturday for New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong. And then we'll have, of course, the This Day in Each History segment. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then on the articles. Let's look into the articles here now. Pull the first one up here. Da-da-da-da-da. Alrighty then. So, Takopi's Original Sin anime gets first trailer. Director says he tried to avoid getting too extreme with depictions of pain. Article by Nerdigans Inc. published yesterday. So let's take a look at this now. And Takopi, I believe, is a little pink little creature there, I believe. Let's see. Takopi snaps a selfie with Shizuku Kuze in Takopi's Original Sin. So, according to, I guess I forgot to put in two. According to director Shinya Ino, while his upcoming anime adaptation of the heartbreaking manga series Takopi's Original Sin will not air away from the original story's more brutal aspects, he did take special care to avoid making its depictions of pain, quote unquote, feel too sadistic. There's Takopi right there, as we said, who's voiced in the Japanese by Kurumi Mamiya. So. First confirmed as in production in early December and receiving its first trailer at the Jump Festa 2024 preview event a few weeks later, the animated take on mangaka Taizen 5's debut manga will follow the titular Takopi, voiced in the anime by Kurumi Mamiya, who also provided the voice of Marin in Hirogaru Sky Precure. A member of the Happy Alien race, as he seeks to spread happiness across the universe. Well, isn't that sweet? I wonder then why that is so. Okay, so depiction of pain and with a creature that's trying to spread happiness. Okay, obviously we're missing something there. Let's see. In service of this mission, Takopi makes use of not just his own inherent cuteness, but also a variety of fantastical, in smaller quotes, happy gadgets, such as a camera that can instantly print pictures or a bracelet that lets one fly. These are probably things that could obviously, of course, bring happiness to people, I guess. particularly the bracelet. I mean, who hasn't dreamt of flying on their own without the use of a plane, right? Without the use of a plane or a helicopter or an airship of some type. Finding himself deployed to Earth, Takopi eventually makes the acquaintance of Shizuka Kuze, voiced in the Japanese by Reina Ueda, who provides the voice of Rico in Mega Man Dive, a depressed fourth-grade girl who is regularly and viciously bullied by her peers. Seeing her as the perfect candidate for some cheer, Takopi proceeds to try and raise her spirits, though sadly all of his attempts to do so have no effect. I can see where the dynamic of stories seems to be going here. And though this failure only inspires him to try even harder, his mission abruptly comes to an end when he discovers Shizuka's lifeless body hanging from the rafters of her house. Uh-oh. The young girl, having taken her own life after her one and only friend, her beloved dog, Chappie, was murdered by her bullies. Now that sucks. That really sucks. I wonder how Takopi is going to respond to this. How can you spread happiness when you have some people who are just that evil, that nasty, right? Devastated by the entire affair, Takopi decides to break one of the Happy Gadget's cardinal rules and uses their power to go back in time. In doing so, to do whatever he can to change Shizuka's fate. Yes, and as we all know, the whole idea of trying to mess with time is not always the best idea to go with. However, little does the alien know his, in smaller quotes, original sin will soon spiral into an even greater cycle of evil. That's usually what happens. And then you got the Shizuka Kuze and Takopi are hiding from Marina Kirazaka's to be announced gang in Takopi's. So the voice actor for the main bully there. As readers can attest, part of Takopi's original sin appeal is the fact that Taizen 5 was not afraid to depict such serious subject matters ranging from bullying to depression to child abuse and more. To this end, so it sounds like despite the cute little pink alien creature trying to spread happiness and the cute little girl and all that, this sounds like a very dark manga anime when all is said and done. To this end, during the anime's Jump Festa presentation, Eno told attendees, as per a recap provided by Japanese news outlet Comic Natalie and machine translated by Deepel, quote, that he tried not to make the depiction of pain, in smaller quotes there, in the film too painful. Yeah, that would be kind of interesting to see how you do that, especially with some of the very serious and dark nature of what apparently is of this manga and anime. Admittingly, thanks to the information coming secondhand and limitations of Japanese to English machine translation, currently unclear whether the director's words are meant to suggest that he explicitly toned down manga's graphic imagery for mainstream audiences, or that he simply put a concerted effort into making sure such scenes were not overtly gratuitous. Which yeah, you don't want it being so over the top that it may inspire people, unfortunately. If this is a case of the former than the latter, it would be yet another instance of not just a Japanese work, but one dealing with such heavy topics being slightly um, sanded down for wider audiences. Ultimately, it will likely take the actual release of the series for fans to learn exactly how it handles the hellscape that is Shizuka's life. And there they are again. On a slightly more cheerful note, in conclusion to the Jump Festa presentation, Shizuka's voice actor, Reina Ueda, read a note from Takopi's original Sin mangaka, Taizen 5, commemorating the anime adaptation. Quote, Takopi's original Sin is going to be made into an anime, unquote, they wrote. Quote, I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in the manga's serialization and anime's production, as well as all the readers. I would be thrilled you could watch the anime. As a viewer, I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you very much, unquote. A letter from, all right. Oh, there we go with that one. So be on the lookout for Takopi's original Sin, anime fans. Sounds like a very interesting one. Kind of a very interesting dichotomy they're playing with an alien who comes to Earth to try to, bring happiness um to somebody, but the person they try to bring happiness to sounds like they got such a hellacious life that, can they really find happiness? That's a big question. Sounds like a very interesting, manga and anime to get into if you do decide to do so. Oh, anyways, now we'll get ready to move on to the next piece of the next article we'll look at, which is and I guess this came up after but I guess there was an indie comic showcase. We'll do that one. We'll do, of course, that one tomorrow. That'll be like pretty much the focus of the whole show tomorrow, as we always do on Thursdays when Chris Braley does bring out the indie comic showcase. We'll do that one tomorrow. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this one here. DC Comics Batman writer doesn't like Bruce Wayne being a rich guy. Article by Avi Green, published today. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. According to the woke standards being pushed by Popverse, it's not, quote unquote, cool for Batman to be a wealthy man. It's hard to argue Batman's appeal. The Dark Knight has starred in multiple blockbuster films. He's the linchpin of DC's publishing line, and thousands of fans dream of becoming just like him. In other words, Batman is cool. However, he is also a billionaire, which is somewhat less cool. Decades ago, being a billionaire was cool, but things have shifted. Nowadays, being a one-percenter seems synonymous with corruption. Society seems to be rejecting billions in favor of working-class heroes, but where does that leave Batman? The only problem with that reasoning that they're going with there, the only problem with that particular reasoning is that Batman, despite being wealthy, has always been depicted as somebody who isn't corrupt. He has always, used his wealth to help people. You go throughout Batman's history, he's not, he's not a corrupt individual. Plus, what you also have to understand is, in order to afford a lot of the, high tech gadgets and stuff like that he utilizes, he's got to have a lot of money. I mean, you go back to the Golden Age. There was in Fawcett Comics, there was a kind of what I've often termed a poor man's Batman and Robin by the name of, a lot of people probably know who this, might remember these names: Mr. Scarlet and Pinky. Mr. Scarlet was a public defender, and Pinky was his ward, and not quite as rich as Batman, as Bruce Wayne, but but they still, but with that being said, though, to decry Bruce Wayne for being wealthy is being ignorant of Batman's history, that with that wealth, he did a lot of great things for people. And plus, it does, in order to have all the high tech stuff that he does, he needs to have all that money. So, and then here's Avi's response to it. I just gave you kind of my response to that reasoning. Here's Avi's response to that. At the mercy of left-wing propagandists, regrettably enough. This sure is a strange thing to say when you look upon the subject in the context of Robert Pattinson's the Batman movie doing as well as it did 3 years ago, with over $770 million at the box office. Billionaires were really disliked, who with a hatred of fortunes would want to strain their budget paying for tickets. Well, I think Avi makes a good point there. The writer's unverified claim appears to be a very recent form of propaganda intended to lecture everyone what to think of being wealthy, with surely the biggest irony being that, for all we know, interviewee Tinyon could have already made a pretty good fortune himself from many TV and movie deals he's had so far. So I guess this is James Tinyon that they're talking about here. But if the real-life J. Jonah Jameson, who wrote this puff piece, and Tinyon himself really think being wealthy is inherently bad, it's a foregone conclusion that they have a low opinion of Tony Stark Iron Man to boot. Ditto his creator Stan Lee. No doubt they also have a hostile opinion of Black Panther, Vixen, Professor Charles Xavier, and for all we know, this current leftist propaganda might be the reason why there haven't been any Iron Man movie sequels in over a decade. And for Batman's appeal, they have argued against it. So what's their point? Without all Bruce Wayne's wealth, could he afford to build up the technology base he's got in the Batcave for research and designing gadgets? It's hilarious how that isn't considered. Which that last thing that Avi stated right there was what I just said, right? Was one of the points I made. Without all that wealth, there's a lot he could not have done to, there's things he could not have even done to become Batman. Traveling the world and studying all the different disciplines would not have been possible. Would not have been possible without his wealth, right? Being able to go around the world and studying many different martial arts forms, from karate to Muay Thai kickboxing to Kung Fu to Judo, Aikido, you name it. Capoeira, Shoryuken, Kempo, any form, any martial art form, Taekwondo, any martial art, even grappling, boxing, wrestling, any, could not have been able to do that, as well as, again, as Avi pointed out here, as I pointed out earlier, could not have also built as he put it, the technology base. But being able to get and maintain all those quote bat gadgets he has, it costs a pretty penny. So being wealthy, while they're trying to make it sound like being rich goes hand in hand with being corrupt. Here's a newsflash for you, gentlemen. Corruption can happen no matter what your economic standing is. Okay? Yes, the rich can be greedy, but actually so can poor people. Poor people can be greedy too. It's a human flaw. It's not a flaw that's just exclusive to the rich. And as I was mentioning earlier with Batman, he was always depicted as using his wealth for the benefit of mankind. So the whole idea, well, Batman Bruce Wayne is rich, therefore he's corrupt, just isn't going to fly with a lot of people. Maybe outside of the leftist, of course, but for James Tynion the Fourth, the solution was to take away Bruce Wayne's fortune. During Tynion's 2020 Joker War storyline, Batman lost his family fortune, but was left with enough money to live comfortably on a budget. Speaking to a crowd at CCXP, Tynion spoke about the decision. Quote, in my run, we were able to hit that on the head a little bit, where he was still a very wealthy man. When you go back to the old stories, he wasn't the richest man in the entire world. He was just rich. I knocked him down a few pegs, where he was still doing fine, but it wasn't like, in small quotes, I can buy 6 satellites and build a rocket ship tomorrow, unquote. Tynion is correct about the old Batman comics. In Detective Comics number 27, Bruce Wayne is described as a socialite. When his origin is revealed in Detective Comics number 33, Bruce comments that his father's estate has, quote unquote, left me wealthy. But as they tend to want to kind of gloss over the years, he was depicted as using that wealth still for the benefit of others. So, some early comics, such as Batman number 5, describe the Wayne home as an apartment rather than a mansion or manor. Which, again, not too bad. I mean, if anything, that's him not flaunting his wealth. The whole idea of, he's living in an apartment instead of a mansion or manor. Detective Comics number 105 in 1945 has Bruce suffer a financial setback, forcing Dick and Alfred to take part-time jobs. By Batman number 64, writers began to refer to Bruce Wayne as a millionaire. As decades passed, his description shifted to millionaire, which would make sense after all, with as long as Batman's been running, of course, if he invests his money wisely and all that, you can grow your wealth from millions to billions, right? Point is, Bruce Wayne wasn't always one of the richest men in the world. Yeah, but you're arguing that, saying that the richer he is, the more evil he is kind of a bad argument, especially when they've also depicted him. Utilizing that wealth over the years for the benefit of others. So, now here's Avi's response to that statement. This sounds like a little more than looking for every excuse in the book to justify a political position. I don't think it was ever established Wayne was numero uno billionaire on the globe. and probably not even as rich as Aristotle or Onassis. Yeah, I don't think they ever. Yeah, I think Avi is right there. I don't think they ever did actually say just how rich he was. He was rich enough to basically be able to help people where he could. You know. But if Bruce could be a billionaire, what about Tony Stark again? Shellhead's technology firm was portrayed in the Marvel Universe as one of the most prolific developers that could amount to billions of bucks in income. So if Tinyon and even Scott Snyder think there's something wrong with being wealthy, it's a foregone conclusion they believe Lee was wrong to establish Tony as a billionaire, unless we forget such a view obviously applies to Bob Kane and Bill Finger as well. It's not hard to guess this insulting viewpoint is also closely related to the mindset that got Mary Jane Watson kicked to the curb as Spider-Man's girlfriend wife. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing that we've seen over the past 5-10 years here, right, is that the current generation of mainstream writers have a very negative view on those who came before them. They have very little of any respect for those who paved the way for them, for those who came before them. They are very disrespectful of men like Stan Lee, of men like obviously, Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, C.C. Beck, and Otto Binder, Will Eisner. They do not respect these men. They, and we definitely know that they don't respect some of the ones who came from just the previous generation, the people like Ethan Van Sciver, like Gabe Eltabe, like Mike Barron. We've talked a lot about that, like Chuck Dixon. We talked a lot about that too, right? And then back to the article here. Tinyon spoke more about the dichotomy, noting how Batman fights the corrupt establishment, which set him apart from other billionaires. Which is true, because because we've seen throughout, he's dealt with you go back to the Golden Age, he was dealing, granted, you had Joker and Catwoman and a few of the more notable, rogues galleries, but he was also fighting a lot of like mobsters and corrupt city officials, right? So, and even in the '90s cartoon, he was dealing with Roland Daggett quite a bit, who you could argue was a corrupt, wealthy person. So, quote: Batman was always against a corrupt system. There is the old stories where it was the vice and corruption inside Gotham City that he was weeding out. You can't turn Batman into the system. He always has to be fighting against it, even if he is from the same things that bred that system, unquote. But again, wealth in of itself is not the problem. It's what you do with the wealth. And yes, he fights the system, but even as a wealthy man, he's used his wealth a lot for the betterment of Gotham. To things like the Wayne Foundation, right? Something tells me that corrupt establishment doesn't include leftists like George Soros, whose campaigns have caused only so much disaster wherever he ran his business. Nor will Tinyon and company ever take issue with Republicans who turned a deaf ear and blind eye to what harm Soros brought to society? And G, if Batman is established as being against corrupt systems, what about Iron Man? Wasn't he also written similarly? There's nothing new. Rich people come in, both good and bad personas, just as poor people do, just as working class people do. Didn't that ever occur to them? So now back to the article here. And again, if you haven't already, if you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, moving along here. That theme has returned in Absolute Batman, a new ongoing series set in an alternate universe. This version of Bruce Wayne was never rich, which recontextualizes everything about the Dark Knight and his relationship with the city. In fact, it was Tynion who convinced Scott Snyder to write the series. While the world may have a different relationship with billionaires now, Batman will never fall out of style. Whether he's a one percenter or a working class hero, Batman will always be the enemy of the corrupt establishment. Let's see. And then here's Avi responding to that statement. If Donald Trump's reelection is any indication, the relationship with billionaires or even just millionaires isn't much different from before. But again, if they see Batman as a slang used by Occupy Wall Street, then they obviously must view Iron Man in the same way. On which note, they almost hilariously ignore how if Tony Stark wasn't rich, then from a real life viewpoint, he definitely couldn't afford to build all those amazing technologies he put into his shellhead outfits. Again, the point we made with Batman as well. They couldn't afford a lot of the equipment they utilize. A similar observation can be made about Black Panther and any technologies developed by T'Challa. It's also the same for the Fantastic Four. How could they have built their spacecraft leading to the superpowers they acquired if they didn't have the funding for it? Some of which may have been provided by the government in Lee and Jack Kirby's premise, but even so, a valid point can be made for them to about wealth and expenses. Spider-Man, by contrast, was never written building anything as elaborate as spaceships and technology fortresses on his own meager budgets when he first debuted. There's a picture of Stan Lee from Amazing Fantasy. In any case, the pop-verse writer Tynion and company have made clear with their propaganda where they stand on wealthy Marvel heroes, too. I hesitate to think what'll happen when they get their mitts on Iron Man and other rich Marvel heroes so long as Marvel is still around, because that's tragically what's bound to happen to boot. No matter what Marvel created universe their stories will be set it, I think it's supposed to be in, not it, and the result will be equally awful. Clearly, Tom Taylor wasn't the only problem awaiting both the Masked Manhunter and Superman when it came to leftist lecturing about money. Yep. So there we go. So we're done with the articles tonight. We'll probably get ready to we will get ready here to move ahead here to the wrestling wrap-up. But my final words on that last article, of course, wealth, it's not money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. That's what people have to remember. That's what it says. It's not money itself is not the root of all evil. It's the love of money. That's the root of all evil. That is what they call greed, people. So, because and as Batman, as I mentioned earlier, Batman is always depicted as using his wealth for the betterment of Gotham and for other people. So he's not, and he's fighting the corruption. He's not the corrupt, evil businessman that maybe in the back of their minds that people like Tom Taylor and James Tynion, the pop writer, all want you to believe he is. So, with that being said, why don't we get ready to move on to wrestling wrap up now? So we're gonna, of course, go back to last night, NXT as their New Year's Evil event, which happened from here in Southern California in Los Angeles. And I can go grab it. And of course, The Rock made an appearance on last night's show, basically confronting Ethan Page when Ethan Page was getting in the face of Rock's daughter Ava. Basically trying to challenge her authority until he came in, as again like a TKO board member to remind him who the real final boss is. So the night opened up with Julia defeating Roxanne Perez to become the new NXT Women's Champion. Stephanie Valkyrie defeated Cora Jade, Kalani Jordan, and Lola Vice to become the number one contender to the NXT Women's North American title. Gigi Dolan's Tatum Paxley and Shotzi defeated Fatal Influence. Lexis King retained the NXT Heritage after winning it like last week in a controversial manner. And Oba Femi became the new NXT Triple Threat or NXT champion, defeating former champ Trick Williams and Eddie Thorpe. So that was from the Shrine Expo Hall in Los Angeles, California. So, and as I said, Rock made an appearance there last night. Now it's believed that so the likelihood is, based on some of the rumors that were going into a New Year's Evil event, it's likely that Trick Williams will probably be heading to the main roster. It's likely, that's what the rumors were saying, that whoever. Now, initially, this, as I said, and I mentioned this last night, in that particular match, my guess is, and I haven't seen the match yet, so I don't know, but if Eddie Thorpe took the fall, as I suspect he did, it was meant for him to take the fall so that, whoever would, because initially it was going to be Oba Femi challenging Trick Williams for the title, with the winner being champion, and the loser moving up to the main roster. But I think in order to keep from killing any momentum for the loser's sake, they added a third person into the match to take the pinfall. So with that, now let's go ahead and let's look ahead to tonight's Dynamite, as tonight's Dynamite is happening from Clarksville, Tennessee, the F&M Bank Arena. Buddy Matthews will be taking on Will Ospreay. Mark Briscoe, coming off of his loss, the TNT title to Daniel Garcia, with Daniel Garcia's successful defense, will be taking on Bobby Lashley. In a number one contendership match, a casino gauntlet match for the AEW World Title, Jeff Jarrett, Adam Page, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Jay White have all been have all been all participated. Now, as I understand it, the Casino Gauntlet is set up similar to the Royal Rumble, but instead of a battle royal, it's more like a regular match, and the first person, the participants come in at different intervals, and come in at intervals, and until somebody gets a pinfall or submission victory. And then there's also a casino number one, I guess a casino for a women's match. There's a number one spot 3-way, just as they had for last week between Jay White, Powerhouse Hobbs, and I think Roderick Strong. There's a 3-way number one spot contendership for a women's casino gauntlet between Toni Storm, Willow Nightingale, and Chris Statlander. So that's going to be an interesting match for tonight. So, and of course, we'll probably be hearing, coming off of their successful matches over the weekend, Mercedes Moné and Konosuke Takeshita will probably be, of course, with Mercedes Moné becoming the Rev Pro British undisputed world women's champion, and Konosuke Takeshita becoming the New Japan Never champion. We'll probably be hearing from them in regards to those, as I do believe I know that Konosuke Takeshita has a title defense this Saturday in San Jose at the New Japan Strong Show, in which he'll be defending the Never title against Kushida. As for Mercedes Moné, we'll wait and see what's next for her. So that's all I have for the wrestling wrap up. Let me just see here. All right, so with that now with today being Wednesday, January the 8th, 2025, let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. So let me 2014, 1965. See 2000. And 2015. All right. So now, with that being said, let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. So the first thing is we're going to head back to 1965, 60 years ago today. And on this date, in 1965, after dropping it to Pat Patterson 5 days earlier, Pepper Martin regains the NWA Pacific Northwest heavyweight title from Pat Patterson in Portland, Oregon, 5 days after defeating Patterson. After Patterson defeated him in Eugene, Oregon. On this date, back in 1965, 60 years ago today, Pepper Martin regains the NWA Pacific Northwest heavyweight title from Pat Patterson after having dropped it to him 5 days earlier. So now, moving ahead to the year 2000, 25 years ago today, as on this date, 25 years ago today, let's see, Decode Entertainment Rainbow Fish, which was a children's animated television series adapted from the book of the same name by Marcus Pfizer. Premiered on television throughout the world back in the year 2000. So premiered in Canada on Teletoon, in Germany on ZDF, and on HBO Family in the U.S. So on this date back in 2000, Decode Entertainment's Rainbow Fish premiered on television throughout the world, here in the States on HBO Family, among other places. So, now getting ready to move on to the next piece in each history. Moving ahead to 2014, which was 11 years ago today. On this date, 11 years ago today, back in 2014, the 25th issue of Batman 66 was released digitally by DC Digital on this date back in 2014. So 11 years ago today, DC Digital released the 25th issue of Batman 66, a comic based on the 1966 Batman television series. The story was called Caught by the Cape. It was 10 pages. It sold for 99 cents. It was 20 pages in total. Written by Jeff Parker, with art by Craig Rousseau, lettered by Wes Abbott, and then colored by Tony Avina. So, on this date, of course, in on 2014, 11 years ago today, the 25th issue of Batman 66 was released digitally by DC Digital. Now, moving ahead to 10 years ago, 2015, on this date in 2015, the following anime premiered on Japanese television on this date back in 2015. Lurche's Assassination Classroom, along with Shaft's Gourmet Girl Graffiti and Madhouse's Death Parade, all premiered on Japanese television on this date in back in 2015, 10 years ago today. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, I keep these up, so you can always, if you miss the live show, you can always come back and watch the show, show later. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here with more Nietzsche News tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow night we'll be looking at Indie Comic Showcase number 292 from Chris Braley on Bleeding Fool. That'll be our main focus tomorrow night. We'll get you caught up on all the happenings in pro wrestling as well. Tonight's Dynamite, as well as look ahead to tomorrow night's maybe Ring of Honor and TNA Impact shows. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.